Tonight, construction at Clark Creek Wind Farm hits the halfway mark.
A man killed in a truck crash on the Capricorn Highway.
Our Central Queensland celebrated the Melbourne Cup.
And parents warned with snake bites on the rise.
This is 7 News with Joanne, Desmond and Nathan Spurling.
Good evening, thanks for joining us.
Good evening.
A Central Queensland wind farm has marked a major milestone with half its turbines now in the ground. But today, Premier Crisafulli wouldn't be drawn on whether he'd scrap a key renewables target after abandoning a big-ticket regional project.
Towering turbines line the rolling hills of Clark Creek, 150 kilometres northwest of Rockhampton.
It's cleaner energy, more affordable and reliable energy.
Owned by Andrew and Nicola Forrest, the wind farm will be among the state's biggest when it's completed mid-next year. 50 of 100 turbines have now been installed, each with a 30-year lifespan.
This project will generate electricity that will power more than 330,000 Queensland homes.
Squadron Energy promising no koalas have been killed and only 2% of land has been cleared for the project. Meanwhile, the Premier was in Townsville today, dodging the question of whether a key renewables target would be scrapped.
Are you committed to the target of 70% renewable energy by 2032?
Well, we've signed on to net zero by 2050. And that's an important goal and one that we will achieve.
After scrapping the Pioneer Burdekin pumped hydro project, David Crisafulli failed to rule out cuts to other over-budget projects, a move which could jeopardise renewables targets.
We have to make sure that we build things on time and on budget. That's our commitment.
Connor Alforque, 7 News.
A 60-year-old Victorian man has been killed after two trucks collided on the Capricorn Highway at Cabra this morning. Emergency services were called around at 7 o'clock and closed the highway in both directions. The 66-year-old driver of the other truck was uninjured and declined offers to be taken to hospital. Crash investigators are asking members of the public who may have information or dashcam vision to get in contact.
We could soon see sweeping changes to the way the Australian healthcare system operates. It's part of a landmark review into our health heroes and how they're currently hamstrung by red tape.
Cutting out the middleman could be the way of the future for healthcare.
For the poor GPs that are swamped at the moment, it would be good to be able to relieve that pressure for them.
Patients treated at some allied health services are currently sent back to the GP if they need a referral to see a specialist.
Currently, the GPs are inundated with patients for every situation that's going on, and it's so congested. It would be much easier, obviously, if our patients could just go directly to the surgeons.
Now, a landmark report has found removing barriers like this will improve access to regional healthcare.
But also for the patients to just have the ability to get into your specialists a lot quicker.
It'll alleviate some pressure from our overwhelmed general practitioners, but not everyone thinks it's a good idea.
The risk with this report is that we'll get siloed off, have a two-tier health system and really not share information or share knowledge about patients.
It's now up to the federal government to action all or some of the 18 recommendations. Health Minister Mark Butler says much of the advice requires states and territories and other organisations to jump on board, but a timeline for those discussions is still up in the air.
Just because it is a review and there are recommendations doesn't mean it will be adopted nor implemented.
Claire Sienta, 7 News.
A Rockhampton court has fined a local childcare centre $50,000 after finding the company guilty of leaving a 3-year-old girl on a daycare bus for 6 hours. The incident happened on May 4, 2022 at Le Smiley's Early Learning Centre in Gracemere when the child was discovered by staff just before the afternoon school run. She was airlifted to a Brisbane hospital and has since made a full recovery. Magistrate Stephen Burns highlighted the serious failures in supervision that led to this incident.
Well, history has again been made at the Melbourne Cup as a 5-year-old gelding with regional Queensland connections stunned the field at Flemington. Knight's Choice was at one stage paying odds of 101 to 1, but in a photo finish, an amazing new chapter for the great race was written.
The 164th Melbourne Cup again brought crowds to Flemington, but a horse with regional Queensland connections wasn't enticing too many punters.
He was an honest effort last time in the Bendigo Cup. He's got to make up a fair bit of ground on Sea King, though. He's entitled to be a price.
Knight's Choice at one stage this morning was 101-1. But in the famous final stretch, something special was brewing for the 5-year-old gelding.
Knight's Choice is coming through at any old price, and Warp Speed as well. Zardozi grabbed by Knight's Choice, and Warp Speed coming at it. Knight's Choice, Warp Speed, they hit the line. It's a photo finish. Knight's Choice, I reckon's one from Warp Speed.
A few nervous minutes followed until
Knight's Choice is the winner. Robbie Dolan for John Simons and Sheila Lexon. It is a rank outsider.
the upset, one for the ages. It was also the first time Queensland-based Irish jockey Robbie Dolan was racing in the Cup, and what a debut.
I watched every Melbourne Cup for the last 40 years the other night, and I just thought my best chance is if I get him to stay the trip, and hopefully he can rattle home.
Warp Speed was second, Okita Sushi third, and for those in office sweeps, Just Fine ran last. Luke McGarry, 7 News.
Flemington may have drawn the big crowd, but in central Queensland, Cup excitement was also in full swing. Plenty of people turned out in style at Callaghan Park, Cocoa Brew and the Rockhampton Leagues Club, raising a glass or two to the race that stops the nation.
There was fashion, fun, bets and plenty of food and drink. Across Rockhampton today, events were sold out as people finished work early or took the day off to celebrate.
Any excuse to finish work early?
Good atmosphere here. It's always a few people. Yeah, everyone seems to get along.
Stepping out for the Melbourne Cup is a yearly tradition for Kathy and her friends.
This is about our 4th year at the Leagues Club, and we usually have about 20 to 25. We're only a small group today, about 15.
And when it comes to placing a bet,
do we ever? So we've got lucky, what do you call them, the sweeps, and we have a few bets, and then we have the raffle and so forth. Yes, most definitely.
When it came to food, there were plenty of options to line the stomachs. Before it was time to enjoy a drink to bring in the race. Making this year's Melbourne Cup another one to remember. Christian Penny, 7 News.
Well, mortgage holders who were hoping for some Christmas cheer today are a little disappointed after the Reserve Bank kept interest rates on hold at 4.35%. The decision comes as the inflation rate was slowly falling within the RBA's target range of 2 to 3%.
Reflects the progress that we are making together in the fight against inflation.
But most economists believe an interest rates cut is expected early next year.
Parents are being urged to educate their young children about the dangers of snakes. The reptiles are becoming more active as the weather warms up, with an alarming number of Queenslanders bitten.
This slithery hitchhiker made for a terrifying road trip.
And this little face came up in front of the windscreen, and I just went, snake!
The tiny tree snake caused Fran, her sister and a friend to pull over at least 3 times.
And invite it to get out, but it didn't want to get out.
Snake season runs from September until April, and in the first 4 days of November, paramedics have already responded to at least 9 reports of snake bites across the state. A 2-year-old boy was recently bitten on the foot by an eastern brown in South Australia while going down a slide. It's still unclear whether babies are born with a fear of snakes or develop it. Professor Otmar Lipp says different parenting styles may explain why people show different levels of fear.
The best predictor of children's fear of anything is the response that the parents show.
Parents are being encouraged to explain the risks of snakes.
Teaching children from an early age how dangerous they can possibly be is a very good thing.
Because you never know where they might appear. Connor Alforque, 7 News.
And ahead tonight in 7 News, Stephen Miles keeps the Labor leadership in opposition.
And researchers delving into the hidden history of sports concussion. And thanks for joining us here on 7. Stephen Miles will continue to lead Queensland Labor after being elected unopposed as the new opposition leader. But the shadow cabinet has had a shake-up with 4 new MPs voted in.
Tom Smith, Joan Pearce, Corinne McMillan and Linus Power. Half of our shadow cabinet will be women. All of our regional MPs will be in shadow cabinet.
Stephen Miles says he'll now focus on holding the new LNP government to account and working to reconnect with Queenslanders. It's the party's first time in opposition in more than 10 years.
CQ Rescue has completed more than 55 missions in just the last month. Sponsors and donations keep the life-saving service in the air. And today, Squadron Energy renewed its support for the next 3 years.
Covering more than 300,000 square kilometres, Cap Rescue is always on standby for Central Queenslanders in need.
We've done winch recoveries out of Carnarvon Gorge, off Great Keppel Island, Mount Larkham and all sorts of places, plus searches.
Providing a vital service in remote areas and in life-threatening situations.
There really isn't an alternative. We're usually the last call.
But the service relies on sponsorship and donations to keep its rotors spinning.
This service is a life. Providing life support to this region, and I think about more than 400 rescues every year.
Squadron Energy says Cap Rescue's commitment to the community inspired it to renew its 3-year lift-off partner sponsorship worth $90,000.
We are committed to providing support into the community and providing long-lasting benefit.
The generosity and support not unnoticed by frontline crews.
And without partners, lift-off partners like Squadron Energy, this service just doesn't exist.
Christian Penny, 7 News.
Former Rockhampton Mayor Jim Webber has died at the age of 84. He served 3 consecutive terms from 1982 until 1991 before an 11-year stint as a councillor, including 4 years as Deputy Mayor. Mr Webber underwent treatment for lymphoma in 2014. His brother Ian paid tribute to a man who showed him what the ultimate definition of success is. Current Mayor Tony Williams said Jim was a dedicated leader who made a lasting impact on Rockhampton, serving with commitment, vision and passion.
Well, Queensland researchers are on a mission to debunk the concussion crisis beyond football injuries. They say athletes have been suffering from brain trauma for decades, and expectations to perform in sport are fueling the risks.
Win this match.
A hit to the head.
Oh, here we go. This is not good.
Can have life-changing consequences for athletes. Professional or amateur, concussions don't discriminate.
These are people who are playing the same games but without the same level of monitoring.
Off a motorbike out west, checking waters, pretty much plowed in the ground, yeah.
Researchers at UQ say concussions are linked to diseases like Parkinson's and dementia.
And those concerns and those crises have been quashed.
Today, there's more attention on brain damage and footballers, but increased pressure to perform in contact sports is widespread, especially in Australia.
There's a lot of really interesting cultural factors that go into shaping the way Australians play sport as well.
Professor Stephen Townsend says there are hidden victims of concussions too.
An athlete using brain trauma as an excuse or to reduce their culpability.
Now the research is hoped to give the crisis new momentum to protect all of those at risk.
Especially when you have kids and stuff, you know, because you want their brains to be working the best they can.
Tom Duffy, 7 News.
All right, now it's time to have a look at what's happening in sport. And as we saw earlier, it was a pretty big day at Callaghan Park.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head there, Joe. While Melbourne Cup celebrations were taking place, though, Big Mal Meninga was naming his Aussie squad for the Pacific Championship final. And there's great news for CQ's biggest horse race. The Archer is coming back. And welcome back for all of tonight's sport. As we saw earlier, thousands were at Callaghan Park today taking part in Melbourne Cup celebrations. And it's been confirmed that CQ's own great race will be taking place again in 2025. The $1 million Archer will return after a deal was struck with the Rocky Amateur Club.
After reaching an agreement to secure one of the richest regional races, the Archer is on
in 2025.
We see it as a signature race for the Rocky Amateurs to hold here at Callaghan Park, and we just don't see this type of prize money.
The Rockhampton Jockey Club signed the tenancy agreement with the Rocky Amateurs, keeping the race for another year.
We believe that Callaghan Park is the best place to do that. Here at Rockhampton, it's the best racetrack in this part of the Queensland.
Jockey Club CEO David Aldred says the Archer doesn't just attract top-line jockeys and horses to the region.
The local trainers get a chance to rub shoulders with other trainers like the Gay Waterhouses and the Chris Wallers and those sort of people that don't normally come.
Now, the planning for next year's race can take centre stage to make it a bigger and better success.
We just hope the race can continue to grow and prosper here in regional Queensland.
Connor Marcellus, 7 News.
His future remains unclear in the NRL, and Dingo's Ben Hunt has missed out on Mal Meninga's final 17 for Australia's Pacific Championship final on Sunday. Hunt is currently the 18th man in a side where Yeppoon's Harry Grant will once again start at hooker, while Penrith's Lindsay Smith will make his debut. He's come onto the bench for the injured Cam Murray. The Kangaroos will face Tonga, and there's expected to be plenty of support for the red and white in Western Sydney.
Whether it's a sea of red or, a few green and gold sprinkled in there, so it doesn't particularly worry us too much. And I just think that now we want to do our country proud. We're passionate about it, our jersey, so we'll be in there fighting.
Meanwhile, the Gillaroos are first up against New Zealand, and CQ's Tamika Upton, as expected, has been named to start at fullback. Rocky long-distance swimmer Val Kilmakov is off to Hervey Bay next weekend to compete in the Barge to Beach Open Water event. It's a race where swimmers are dropped 2 kilometres offshore before making their way back to the beach.
Olympic marathon swimmer, now coach, Karina Lee, is a big supporter of the Barge to Beach Ocean Race.
I came up and did the event, and it was an absolutely iconic event. So now as a coach, we've had this on our targeted meet list since the start of the year.
And Lee believes the race is a perfect event to assist swimmers in long-distance training.
I think for myself back then when I was an athlete, and for the athletes coming to do it this time, it's really great training. Any event in the open water is a great opportunity.
And Lee will be bringing a star-studded team to the region next weekend.
We're bringing up 9 athletes that will come and race. So we've got Tom Raymond, who's the current Australian open water champion. We've got Bianca Crisp and Bailey Armstrong, who are Australian Dolphins.
Meanwhile, the race is always special for original winner Val Kilmakov.
The uniqueness of the event. It's not just something you start from the beach, finish from the beach. It's different to swimming around the island. It's just that I think it's a little bit of thrill to jumping in the middle of the bay and try to make it to the shore.
Kilmakov will swim the race with his wife for the second time, but hopes to change the result.
2 years ago, we did exactly the same thing, and the last 500 meters, she just sprinted and she beat me.
Brendan Bowers, 7 News.
I've got a feeling that still haunts Val, that result.
Yeah, I think it might be going a bit hard, that last 500
I agree with you next week. We'll see. Thank you.
All right, stay with us after the break. Livio has all the weather details for us.
Good evening, Livio, Regano with tonight's weather. The heat's ramping up across northern Queensland, and the week ahead will feel very much like an excerpt from midsummer, except of course there'll be no rain. Not a drop in sight, just day after day of burning sunshine and dry grass. Could be time to get those sprinklers out. In Rockhampton today, our top temp was 34 degrees, which is around about the midsummer average. Gladstone hit a high of 29 and Emerald got to 37. To the satellite loop now. As expected, most of the state's been clear today, apart from the cloud around Cape York Peninsula, and also, of course, the storms that developed quite early this afternoon around the Darling Downs and then slowly moved east. There was a warning issued just for the Scenic Rim area, but most of the other storms were sort of borderline severe, some of them quite nasty, and they're still coming through now, so keep your ears out for warnings. Today's chart, the trough responsible for the storms is this one here, stretching across Western Queensland, and then the lower end is coming through the Darling Downs. There's a heat wave warning ahead of that trough because of the intense northwesterly winds bringing down all that equatorial air. On tomorrow's chart, the trough actually regresses a little bit west. That'll take the focus of storms away from southeast Queensland. There may still be some isolated ones, but they're less likely to be severe and they'll be further apart. Meanwhile, in the tropics, it's just going to be burning heat. There's no rain at all. On the outlook chart, again, we see that trough move further east, but we're going to have to wait until Friday before the next front catches up with it, drags it through eastern Queensland and brings another round of storms for the southern part of the state. Now the latest from BOM. The boating forecast for Capricornia waters, north to northeast winds 10 to 15 knots tomorrow, 15 to 20 knot northerly winds on both Thursday and Friday, getting a bit choppy. The new moon's well behind us now, so the tidal swing is settling right down. At the moment, we've got our high tide around the middle of the day and low tides around dawn and dusk. For the Capricornia district, a sunny and hot day. Gladstone 31 degrees, Rockhampton 35, Billowither 36, and Yeppoon with a sea breeze 29. Central Highlands and Coalfields, afternoon storms on the Carnarvon Ranges and a high fire danger. Emerald 20 up to 38 degrees, Claremont 39, and Moranbah again 38. Looking ahead for Rockhampton, no rains forecast for at least the next 5 days. There's a possibility some showers may develop next week, but the odds aren't brilliant. The only thing for certain is that it's going to be hot. And that's all for tonight, folks. Pleasure to have your company as always, and thanks for watching 7 Local Weather. I'll be back tomorrow with more on the latest. Hope you can join me then. Now it's back to the team.
Yeah, good on you, Livio. Thank you very much for that. Well, we hope you enjoyed Melbourne Cup Day, and we'll catch you again tomorrow here on 7.
And just also a reminder, you can watch a replay of our news on 7 Plus, or you can download the 7 News app. From all of us here, enjoy your evening. Good night.
Good night.